We have 2 minutes. I should be fine. I can type in here, right? One minute. Morning, Jeff. I show 9:30.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Our President Laura is going to be here a little bit late, so let's get going. Let's call the Western Municipal Water District regular board meeting to order. Tammy, can we have roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Director Gardner,
I am here.
Director Torres,
Here.
Director Dinstedt, Director Roten, Vice President Risby.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning. Vice President Risby, you do have a quorum today.
All righty. Let's do a Pledge of Allegiance led by Brandon Beckius. Come on, Brandon. Tell us a little bit about you.
Hello, my name is Brandon Beckius. I am a part-time employee within regulatory compliance in the engineering department. I've been here about 3 months.
All right.
Glad to have you.
Yes. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice with all.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
I thought the board might be interested in seeing one of our part-time employees.
Great job.
It's proven to be a really good experience for the part-timers. It's also been a great proving ground, this whole process of part-timers. In fact, Tim and myself we interviewed a part-timer for a full-time job yesterday, and we have another interview tomorrow for the same thing. So it's really working out great for us. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you, Brandon. All right. Public comments. Any public comments?
I have no request to speak online or in the audience. However, I did receive one written public comment that has been provided to the board and is on the dais.
All right.
For those who would like to see the public comment, they may contact me at boardsecretary@wmwd.com, and I'll be happy to share a copy.
Okay. Thank you. Consent calendar.
Move to approve.
Do we have any questions, comments?
Nope,
Okay. Okay to approve?
You moved, I'll second.
Okay. Can we have roll call, please, Tammy?
Director Gardner,
Aye.
Director Torres,
Yes.
Vice President Risby.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 3-0.
All right. Items to be added to the agenda.
There's nothing to add to the agenda today.
All right, let's move on to action agenda. Item 7A, conduct a public hearing and receive and file Western Municipal Water District's 2025 Public Health Goals Report.
All right, thank you,
And-
Vice President Risby. Prior to discussing the public health goals, I want to clarify that Western Municipal Water District met all drinking water limits prescribed by regulatory agencies. Western is required to meet maximum contaminant levels. You'll hear them referred to as MCLs, which it has. At this time, I'm going to ask Lindy Lewis, our, what are you, Lindy? You're our Environmental and Regulatory Compliance Manager. It sounds very official.
Yes.
She's going to run through a PowerPoint presentation. And then we will ask the president or vice president, depending on who's here when she's done, to open up a public hearing. Lindy?
Great. Thank you, Craig. Good morning, directors. So I'm here to present Western Water's 2025 Public Health Goals Report. Next slide. Oh,
Yeah.
there we go. All right, so I will briefly discuss the background, the regulatory requirements, and purpose of the regulations, as well as the content requirement that is in Western's Public Health Goal Report. Then I'll distinguish between what are goals and the mandatory regulatory levels that Western Water complies with. And then we'll finish up with an overview of the Western Public Health Goal Report and any next steps. Next slide. Per California Health and Safety Code 116470, Section B, all public water systems serving more than 10,000 service connections must prepare a brief written public health goal report. And this originates from the Calderson-Share Safe Drinking Water Act of 1996. Next slide. Beginning in 1998, applicable California public water systems were required to prepare the public health goal report every 3 years, hold a public hearing to accept and respond to any public comment on that report, and notify the regulatory body, which for us is the Division of Drinking Water, that the report has been completed and a hearing held. Next slide. So the purpose of the requirement is to develop a report to provide customers with information on the level of contaminants in drinking water every 3 years, even if it is below the enforceable limits. The public health goal requirement is unique to California. We are the only state that requires such a report. Western Water routinely communicates its water quality for all detected contaminants, regulated and unregulated, on an annual basis through our consumer confidence or our water quality report that is available to all of our customers by July 1st of every year. So the public health goal report, again, it's only 3 years, it's California, it's only regulated contaminants that have a public health goal, and it's the report is issued at a public hearing. Next slide. So we are required to include in the report any detected regulated contaminant that exceeds the established public health goal. So when we say detected, that means it's at the level at which laboratories have demonstrated to the state that they can detect down to accurately and reliably, and can be higher than the established public health goals, which sometimes are 0. So once the contaminants are identified, the report must identify the category of risk to public health, the numerical public health risks, describe any best available technology to remove contaminants, and provide cost estimates for the removal, along with any proposed actions. Next slide. So it's very important to distinguish the difference between a public health goal and the mandatory regulatory levels that we must comply with, and that we call, as Craig said, MCLs, maximum contaminant levels. So I want to note here that the drinking water that Western serves to its customers is in compliance with all state and federal maximum contaminant levels. Public health goals are non-enforceable goals that represent an ideal level of contaminant in drinking water at which no adverse health effects are expected. They're based on theoretical lifetime exposure and are aspirational goals that do not take into effect even our limits of analytical capabilities, technology feasibility, or costs. And they are developed by the California Office of Environmental Health Hazard and Assessment, OEHA, as well as the EPA. MCLs, on the other hand, those are the enforceable regulatory standards that represent the allowable level of a contaminant in drinking water. And they actually are set as close to public health goals as possible while considering, treatment technology and costs. MCLs are used to protect public health by limiting the levels of contaminants in drinking water. Next slide. So Western's 2025 Public Health Goal Report, it includes samples taken from all of the sources of our water in our water systems from 2022 to 2024. And for this report, it included arsenic perchlorate, hexavalent chromium, bromate, gross alpha and beta particle activity, and uranium. All 7 of these noted contaminants are below the maximum contaminant levels. The report does address best available treatment technologies and costs to address these contaminants. However, no further action is recommended in the report, as Western Water currently meets all drinking water standards set to protect public health via its compliance with the enforceable maximum contaminant levels. Next slide. So with the conclusion of this public hearing, DDW will be notified that we conducted a public hearing per the regulation, and that will be the final step for our compliance for this requirement. Next slide. Questions?
Trying to formulate my question in my head. No, I think this is, while it's not enforceable, it's not this, it's not that, but it certainly gives the public, it's transparent to the public. It rises to the level of confidence to the public that we're providing something that's safe. We're taking into account the public health goals and all those things, and I think that's absolutely essential. Are we posting this anywhere once we do this? What's our take to roll out?
We have to send it to all, or make it accessible to all customers. Sarah, you want to go over the outreach program?
Certainly, it would be my pleasure. And I know Lindy can also attest to this. We're legally required to make the water quality reports available twice a year, which we do so on our website. In addition, we send every customer a postcard letting them know that this is available and how they can request printed copies from us if they would like, which we did have a couple of requests this year and we're able to meet right away. In addition to that, we know water quality is a critical topic of importance to all of our customers and community. So it's a part of our regular and routine messaging that we offer through all of our platforms, whether that's our digital updates, our website, our social media, our in-print communications through built inserts and other tools. It's something that we want to make sure is always front and center, especially because there's other outlets that might offer different information. So we want to make sure we're continuing to represent the credible, reliable, factual source of information.
No,
Yeah.
and that's great, and that's what I kind of wanted to put out there, so.
Yeah, and I just, a point of clarification, the information and the data that we put into this every 3-year public health goal report, all of that information is actually in our annual water quality reports. We're listing out our ranges, our annual average on an annual basis. We're showing what the public health goal is, the MCLs, the detection limits, the sources. So it's not just every 3 years. Yes, we're doing some estimated costs to treat and kind of highlighting that data, but that is information that is in our annual water quality reports that's sent out to all of our customers.
No, and I think that's fabulous. And the reason I bring it up, one, is because at a lot of the conferences that I've gone to recently, there has been a very common thread. And it is about telling our story and making sure that we're putting out the correct information to debunk anything else that might be out there. And so I just, kind of lesson learned in hearing some stories at some of the recent conferences I've attended that, if you're not telling your story, somebody else is, and it may not be the accurate one. So I just want to, so kudos to staff. Thank you for doing this. And wonderful presentation. Thank you.
And Director, I would add to your comments, in the past, I've experienced this, I think some of the board members have seen this in the past, where maybe a private sector entity has released water quality kind of fears that are non-data based to try and stir up business. And we've seen a lot less of that now. And I think part of that is because we're doing a much better job, not just Western. I think Western is phenomenal in our communication outreach, but I think as an industry, I think we're much better at trying to build confidence with our customers. And our customers tend to be coming more to us with water quality questions, which is what we want. And I've seen a lot less of what we used to see, some scare tactic about some constituent that's gonna potentially risk health. And then we call Lindy and we're like, Lindy, what's happening? Tell me more about this article. And then it's always nice to have someone with Lindy's capabilities here to kind of debunk the article, and then we'll work on the public outreach side of it to bolster what we actually produce. And we usually refer to the documents like this. Go to the actual data that we get from our own system and look for yourself.
And I think that's something that's really relevant in the industry right now, and why we're seeing a lot of this at conferences to talk about being better storytellers and telling our stuff. Not that Western doesn't do that. We have been doing a great job, and in fact, a number of comments have come to me at conferences from people up and down the state to talk about how well and they follow our public outreach so that they can model after us. So, you know, kudos to staff.
Yeah,
Sorry about that. Thank you. My mic wasn't on. This is now the time and place set for the public hearing to receive comments on Western Municipal Water District's Public Health Goals Report for the year 2025. Law provides for this public hearing so that interested individuals may provide Western Water with comments.
State legislation, SB 1307, which was enacted way back in 1997, requires that a public purveyor prepare a report that provides information to the public in addition to the annual Consumer Confidence Report every 3 years. I'll now ask Mr. Barr to present a brief summary of the findings of the report.
Thank you, Craig. To summarize, public health goals are non-enforceable goals established by the California Environmental Protection Agency's Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment. Public health goals are based solely on conservative public health risk considerations. None of the practical risk management factors that are considered by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency or the California Division of Drinking Water in setting drinking water standards are considered in setting the public health goals. These practical risk management factors include analytical detection capability, available and proven treatment technology, benefits, and costs. The public health goals are not a regulated drinking water standard. The report identified the following constituents as being detected above the public health goals from 2022 through 2024: arsenic, perchlorate, hexavalent chromium, bromate, gross alpha particle activity, gross beta particle activity, and uranium. However, all drinking water Western Water provides its customers met regulatory limits for these constituents. Best available technologies, which are the best known methods of reducing contaminant levels, were reviewed for each of these constituents. Concentrations for these constituents are already below the maximum contaminant level. Therefore, implementing the best available treatment technologies are not required. Use of the best available technology to treat the constituents identified as exceeding public health goals is estimated to increase the annual average household bill for all of Western service areas between $1,700 to $2,841. The estimated cost for additional treatment to address constituents that exceed public health goals is significant. Money that would be required for these additional treatment processes might provide greater public health protections and benefits if spent on other water system operations, surveillance, and monitoring programs. This report is informational only to advise the board and the Western Water customers of the public health goals. Those constituents within the water that have exceeded public health goals and the estimated cost to customers to meet the public health goals for the identified constituents in compliance with the state and federal requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. We will now open the public hearing to receive comments from any member of the public present.
President Roten, I've had no request to speak or make comments at today's public hearing, and I have received no written comments.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no one who wishes to speak, the public hearing will be now closed. Do any board members wish to comment? No? Okay. Are there any further comments from staff?
There are not.
All right. Since there are no further comments, I would entertain a motion.
I would make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I don't see any other asking for discussion, so whenever you're ready for a roll call, please.
Director Gardner,
Aye.
Director Torres,
Yes.
Director Dinstedt,
Aye.
Director Risby,
Aye.
President Roten.
Yes,
Thank you, President Roten. Your motion carries 5-0.
thank you. Okay, we will move on to item B, increase the Riverside potable water and wastewater master plan budgets and amend the professional services agreements for DUDEC and Environmental Science Associates for the preparation of the program environmental impact report for the Riverside master plans.
Derek Weil will present this item.
Okay.
In committee, but it was in June, so I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on it just to remind you of what we're asking. Western Water is finalizing updates to its Riverside Facilities Master Plans, which cover potable, recycled, and wastewater infrastructure. These updates are critical for evaluating future development, right-sizing facilities, and ensuring CEQA compliance through a program environmental impact report. The original master plans were last adopted in 2014, and although a draft update was produced in 2020, it was never finalized. Since then, substantial changes have occurred, especially in development in some of the fringe areas. Most notably, the addition, we've identified 17 new capital improvement projects that now require technical and environmental documentation. To complete this work, staff recommends budget increases and contract amendments. Specifically, an $83,700 increase is requested for the potable and recycled water master plan. This raises the budget for, to $854,950. And for the wastewater fund, an increase of $50,700 for the wastewater master plan. This brings it to a total of $323,190. These cost amendments reflect additional scope items in including refined system demand modeling and analysis of key development areas, such as the Green Tree and the Highland Grove along McAllister. That's where a lot of developments occurring, a lot of housing is going up there. The associated consultant contracts are also proposed to be amendment. DUDEC and Associates contract would increase by $24,270 to a total of $310 and $310,270 to complete the updated infrastructure planning. And Environmental Science Associates, or ESA, who was initially contracted in 2020 to develop the EIR, will see their contract increase by $97,768 for a revised total of $364,467. And that's to incorporate the projects, the new projects we identified into the CEQA analysis. These costs are not included in the current capital improvements and facilities plan. However, when these expenses will be recovered through future capacity charges as development occurs. There is ample money within the reserves to cover this. Staff and committee recommend the approval of the budget amendments and professional services contract to keep the master plan update on track for completion and create a legally defensible EIR under CEQA. Once finalized, we'll return to the board for formal adoption of the EIR. And then we will be considering adjustment of the capacity fees. So the requested board actions are, one, to approve the budget increases. That's a total of $134,400 for the respective funds. And number two, to approve a $24,270 contract amendment with Dudek. And number three, to approve a $97,768 contract amendment with ESA. I now invite any questions and urge your approval.
I actually do have a question. So I heard recommendations 1, 2, and 3. Did you also say number 4, approve an amendment?
I combined, for the first one, I combined it rather than going into each
Oh,
particular
okay.
fund.
Okay, I just want to make sure we weren't missing anything.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions from, I almost said council, the board?
Yes. All habits die hard, don't they?
Yeah, where'd that come from?
Question for you, timeline. When are we looking to have this complete, and when are we going to be looking at capacity?
Well, the
charges?
capacity, that's a different question. So as far as completing this is the master plan's first step. We anticipate finishing this summer. We're running on a summer, but it's pretty soon. Probably
Okay.
within the next 2 months, we should be finished. And once we have that, we'll have a master plan, and then we have to come back to the board for the EIR. I would anticipate certainly before the end of the year, we should be back in front of the board, trying to improve the EIR. Once we do that and the EIR is approved and we actually have a master plan list, then we can do that analysis in order to figure out the capacity fees. It's important that we do it in that order because
Okay.
that's what the regulations say.
No, I'm just curious what the timeline is, so, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Do we have any public comments on this item?
We do not.
Okay. All right, then I would entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
Ms. Ford, whenever you're ready.
Director Gardner,
Aye.
Director Torres,
Yes.
Director Dinstedt,
Aye.
Director Risby, President Roten.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, directors.
Okay. Thank you, Derek. All right, we'll move on to reports. Mr. General Counsel, do you have a report today?
Good morning, Madam President. I do not.
Okay, thank you. And General Manager and staff reports, Mr. Miller.
All right, thank you. I've got quite a few things today. First of all, maybe some highlights since our last board meeting of things that we've been participating in. We had a really good meeting. Director Risby, it wasn't her fault, of course, but in Washington, D.C., when we were there, we tried to meet with the Aqua D.C. staff, and we couldn't pull that off. So we actually had a really nice, Michael arranged a Zoom with their staff, so they had 3 participants. It was a really good conversation. A lot of times it's very superficial, kind of these meet and greets. We got into the nuts and bolts of PFAS, and we were able to share real-world data with them about what we're seeing in our sewer system coming from the base, and they were kind of shocked at what we're dealing with. And so I thought that was really good because they're doing a lot of advocacy back in DC on PFAS and potential remedies for CERCLA liability and things like that for us. And so it really emphasized how important their role is for us. So that was really good. I've been very busy meeting with GMs of our region. So with Harupa, Chino Basin Water Master, Director Denstead and I had a really good small MET meeting with some of our MET member agencies. We met with San Diego, Eastern, and IUA down in Escondido to talk about some upcoming MET issues. We had an executive board committee meeting. A couple of developers have been reaching out to Director Torres. So Director Torres met with us with those developers, and hopefully we got those projects on a path to success. We'll see. Chris Fike and Michael Hadley joined me in a meeting at Rancho. Rancho did a really nice job of pulling together a regional meeting with CARB employees. And remember, CARB is the one who has the requirement to force us to electrify our fleet. And so Rancho did a really good job of pulling together a field trip to demonstrate to the CARB staff how difficult this is going to be for us to respond to emergencies with a solely electrified fleet. You know, when we have to go out and service reservoirs, pump stations on portable generators for days on end with fuel, how are we going to do that with electric vehicles that need to be charged when the electrical system is turned off because of a PSPS? So we have to really push back. And, you know, Chris has kind of been leading the charge for us. I don't know how effective the meeting was with CARB, but at least they heard the story from all of us. And Joe Mawad and myself and the fire chief, county fire chief, was it CAL FIRE or county? County fire chief all made presentations to the CARB staff about the risk that our customers could potentially see if we're forced to electrify our fleet for emergency response vehicles. And it's not just, I say that kind of wrong, because all of our vehicles become emergency response vehicles. It's not like we have this stable of vehicles that we just all of a sudden push off into an emergency. It's our day in, day out fleet. And if it is electrified, how do we charge it in conditions like that? So we're really hoping that CARB is going to give us an exemption so that we don't have to do that. Anyway, really good meeting. Glad Rancho took the lead in doing that. And I've been making a lot of comments about that. Remember, we had a Riverside County Water Task Force meeting. One of our sessions was all about electrifying and the risk. And at CMUA, they've taken a real leadership role statewide in trying to change the regulations. Last week I spoke at the National Water Resources Association conference, and then I think all 5 board members are coming to the BIA conference on Friday. So that'll be good. Hopefully, lots of good presentations. I'll be joining a panel there also with IUA and Eastern. SB 72 is continuing to move. It was put on the suspense file at the Assembly Appropriations. We think that'll be taken up probably the last week of August 25th to 29th, and hopefully it comes off of that. And then it would go to the Assembly floor after that. A lot of activity going on right now. We're not going to wait till it gets to the governor's desk. We are working really hard right now to try and ensure success when we get there. And working really hard with the Appropriations Committee members so that when it does actually get in front of them in August, they've heard a story, we've met with them, or supporters within the region of each of those assembly members is meeting with them to prepare them for their action to get it off of the suspense calendar. Water Master, Mallory's not here. It's good news. I'm surprised Josh didn't take it over. Mallory should be here doing a presentation, but we work really hard on the judgment, and we have to report to the court on an annual basis. So Mallory's been leading that effort. Happy to announce that we met all the obligations. We submitted it to the court. I don't know what Mallory does. I think she walks into a court and hands it to some judge somewhere. But that's a big effort and a lot of coordination between us and Valley District and the pumpers, and it's a big lift. And our team has done just a great job making sure that we're in full compliance with that 69 judgment. The other collaborative effort that I want to give a lot of thanks to our staff on, I think I reported about a Lake Matthews shutdown. One of their enormous gates to the outlet tower was stuck. They couldn't move it. They have to move it to change the way that they take water out of the lake. And as it gets hot, they get algae blooms, so they don't want to, it can have taste and odor challenges, not health challenges, but taste and odor challenges. So they change where they extract water from the lake. And with that gate not working, they couldn't do that. So they had a 5-day shutdown, which affects Corona significantly. Corona takes Colorado River out of Colorado River water out of Lake Matthews, Middle of summer, they were very concerned about the risk. What if they have a fire? They got to have water for firefighting. After this January and all the notoriety over water available for fighting fires, obviously, we're all concerned about that. And so our staff worked with Met extensively and with Corona to make sure they stayed in water. We did a great job of moving water through the Mills gravity line to them, another way around to get to their system. But we also arranged a system with Metropolitan where every day they basically stopped their project at the end of the day, and we were able to collaborate with Corona to make sure they had enough water for the next day no matter what came up. And so they ended up, I don't know what the water levels, I don't know that they ever got below 80% in their system. So they were able, luckily there were no emergencies, there were no spikes of flow, and we got through the shutdown just fine. The gate was released, but they don't know why, I think they don't know why it got stuck. So they're gonna go back in the winter and get back in there, and it couldn't clog the muscles, clog the rails, but they went in and cleaned it all up, but they know, the engineers don't like not knowing why it happened. So there'll be another project this winter when flows are lower. But great collaboration between Corona, our operations staff, our engineering staff, and Metropolitan to get that done.
Does this mean that Met is gonna send an engineer down to look at the gate?
They, Director Denstad approved some crazy contract. So they had to go down over 100 feet, which means they have to decompress. They had, this is like serious deep water diving. And so it's very difficult to do that. So they had 2 diving teams that were going in 2 different towers, and every night they'd have to come out, and it was like a $700,000 contract or something like that through Metropolitan. So it was a big deal. It was a big deal. I don't think any of the engineers went down though, but I don't know. I didn't hear. Maybe the divers are engineers. Who knows? But it's a tough job, that diving like that. Another success. USBR grant award. We received $100,000 for a SCADA project. Total project cost is about $225,000, so we're basically getting half the money, which is great. Congratulations to the Water Resources team for landing that grant. We always love it. And then we're not going to read the public comment, but I just want to highlight the public comment.
We need to read the public.
I'm not going to read the public comment because I don't want to set that precedent.
Ah.
But Ricardo Gonzalez does a fabulous job for this agency and has been doing that for a long time. And I think they said Ricardo with the fancy mustache is amazing and a great representative of Western. And his customer service standard is off the charts. Doesn't matter what time of the day it is, what the problem is. He is out there and he is on the front line of collaborating with customers, and he explains the system and tells them, what's leaking. He'll help them find it and help them shut it off, and also does a great job of explaining, whose problem that is, and that, hey, this is your problem to fix, not Western's problem, but we'll make sure it gets shut off so you're not wasting water. But he's just a great representative of the organization. That's my report.
Okay, any questions, comments? No?
Just real quickly, Madam Chair, at the EOWR committee, we had a briefing on the number of PSPS shutoffs that we had and the number of our pumping facilities that were affected. And it is really critical that we have the ability to move our equipment from place to place anytime there's not electricity. And PSPS is the one that we see some of every year. But the day is going to come when we have a big earthquake and there will not be electricity, at least in some areas, for some period of time. And if we don't have the ability to recharge our electric fleet, our fleet isn't going to go anywhere.
That makes sense.
But that was a really good briefing.
Yeah, it was. Okay, thank you.
I did, I had a quick, not to follow up, but a quick question on the electric vehicles. And I'm probably way off with this. Isn't there a bill, SB 34, that is, this is the wrong word for sure, deregulating or kind of shifting the enforcement from CARB to the state? Basically make it easier to develop, I know that, but, wouldn't there be an opportunity there to say, hey, CARB's not gonna have the same, I don't know. I don't understand, I'm
yeah.
not, this is just based on,
Yeah, I don't,
I know the EIR is affected, not EIR. Yeah, the EIR is affected by it, and other regulation is being, like, they're,
Michael is madly Googling.
no,
So I just-
so we all don't have to wait for Michael to find it. Let us talk about that, but, Director, another thing that has happened since the regulation was put in as a requirement, there's been exemptions that have been
Right.
given to the private sector.
right, and they're doing that
And
for
we've
housing,
asked
is
for
my
exemptions
understanding.
constantly for us,
Right,
and we've been denied
Okay.
those exemptions by CARB. So there has been various efforts to legislate that in, and I know one of them failed.
So
I
SB
see Michael's
SB
gonna bail me out here.
34 is specifically related to the ports of Long Beach and LA. So they're trying to get their exemption out of the requirements. So I'll double check with my groups about different legislation related to this. But yeah, that's what SB 34 is about.
And,
well,
you know,
I tried.
yeah, I know, thank you. And I know that CMUA was sponsoring legislation to try and change this also. We all love clean air, and we think that that's really, really important, but we can't risk the safety of our customers. And so, Craig opinion here, not Western opinion, the amount of air that's going to be cleaned by us electrifying our fleet that has to be out there in emergencies is insignificant to the air quality of the state. We should be able to electrify what works for us, and maybe there'll be some miracle that happens in the future of an electrification program that changes, and then we'll be happy to participate. But as we see it right now, the vehicles aren't available. The ones that are available don't work for what we need. And in a long electrical shutdown, there's no way to recharge your vehicles. And battery life is, if you have an electric vehicle, your car gets 300 miles, and that's it. And then it has to charge for hours. And we see the same thing in pickup trucks and other light-duty vehicles. So it's a big issue. We're not ready, my opinion again, we are not ready for this movement yet. And maybe we will be in the future, but it
We're
is
not
the right
ready,
time.
and the state isn't ready to support that movement.
Yeah.
They're not subsidizing, they're not,
Oh, and I didn't touch on the cost, but the costs will be significantly higher.
Right.
Because when we bought Vector trucks, we bought a new Vector truck, it's $700,000. They haven't built one yet that's electric. When they do, it'll be a lot more than $700,000, and that's a cost that we have to bear in our rates. And, I don't think that that's the right thing to do. So we're gonna keep pushing back, and hopefully we'll get some traction with the CARB staff. They're doing a lot of these tours. It's just not us. I was reading the Aqua News that just came out, and they were up in Placer County doing a tour up there too. So they're hearing the same story from everyone. So hopefully it helps.
That was going to be my next question. I assume water agencies across the board have this concern. So has there been any kind of a group effort, or is everyone so far just kind of going it on their own?
No, the associations like CMUA are pushing really hard.
Oh, good.
Back. So there are association efforts. I don't know if it was several of you went to the CASA conference. I'm not sure if that came up at CASA. They would have the same concerns. So I think the associations are strong behind it. It's frustrating that we're still not being heard about the risk from CARB.
Okay. Thank you. If there aren't any more questions from the board, we'll move on to director comments and requests. SAPA.
Okay.
Mr. Turner.
SAPA met yesterday two significant things occurred. It was just a receive and file, but there was an extensive report on alternative herbicides to Roundup for use in a big program to remove Arundodonax, which is giant cane, in the Santa Ana watershed. It's a very thirsty plant. It spreads really easily. It crowds out native habitat. It's just a bad thing to have. And a lot of information was provided, and the board will make a decision whether to change the herbicide used at its next business meeting. It was not noticed in a way the board could take action yesterday. But they will make a decision on whether to implement some sort of alternative. There are physical alternatives where instead of poisoning the plant, you physically remove it. Those are very labor intensive, more expensive, and less effective, because if you leave any tiny bit of root, it's gonna grow a new one, a new plant. So that was an important discussion, because there's a lot of concern about the health impacts of Roundup, and there have been a number of lawsuits involving it. The other was a closed session action. The board received a letter of resignation from the general manager, Mr. Jeff Mosier, on Monday. At our meeting yesterday, we accepted his resignation effective on Monday. The interim general manager, Karen Williams, is going to stay on as interim general manager until such time as a long-term general manager is selected and comes on board.
Do you know when that selection's gonna start?
No, we will discuss what process we want to go through. It's important that each of the SWAPA board members have a discussion with their general managers, who are having discussions amongst themselves about what sort of a person, what qualifications would we like to see. And I think that decision will be made fairly shortly. There was some discussion about if we go to a big search, that we would use the same headhunter that was used, what, 3 years ago, Brenda?
6.
That long?
That's crazy.
Yeah. It doesn't seem that long. But anyway, yeah. So there is a headhunter firm that is familiar with SWAPA and what their needs are, how SWAPA works. They would likely be the firm that would be selected if we go that route. So we'll know more later. And that's it for SWAPA.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, actually, there is, I'm sorry, one more thing on SWAPA. There was a breach of the brine line down in Corona, part of the railroad overcrossing construction at McKinley Street. And they were doing some potholing to locate utilities.
Oh,
And, no, it's very strange. They washed away, in the potholing, they washed away some dirt from around the brine line and discovered that there was a communications cable that had been bored through the brine line. It had been plugged by solidifying brine. They washed that away. It was all the spill was confined to the excavation, so there was not a spill into the environment. But they did need to ask Western to shut down the Arlington desalter for a period of time, because the part of the brine line that was breached is the part that feeds Arlington desalter. So it wasn't a major effect, and the brine line operators did a great job. They had to shut it down a second time when they were making the physical repairs, and that was short term. So it's all fixed.
Okay, thank you. Metropolitan?
So Metropolitan's meeting this month is moved back a week, and so it's all because of the assessed value, the tax rolls, and the allocation for the vote for the next year. So I'll have more to report. And then just as a note on the electrified vehicles, this has been a large debate up at Metropolitan, and there are two people on very opposite ends, and one of them happens to be Michael Camacho, and the other one is Matt Peterson, who has really pushed for electrification of the vehicles in the fleet. Michael Camacho has challenged him in an all-out race with his diesel engine motor to beat him to, like Havasu or something. So it's been very entertaining. So more to come on that, because, Metropolitan's got a significant fleet as well. But again, they had to respond to a lot of stuff that was going on in Palisades and the Eaton fire and all that, and trying to, make sense of all that, and asking other agencies to come in with support and bring fuel, to try to even get stuff, because they didn't have access to anything. So even at that point, but anyway, just kind of a little side note, and just some conversations that have been going on at Metropolitan. But I will have more to report at next meeting.
Okay. Chino Basin Water Master.
Thank you. Chino Basin Water Master, couple of things quickly. They are in the process of updating the Optimum Basin Management Program. And there has been some controversy over whether the economic impacts on individual parties in the Water Master family is being appropriately identified. So they authorized the general manager to issue a contract for $92,000 to engage a consultant to conduct an economic analysis. There's still some concern about whether that study is going to satisfy the concerns of each of the individual parties that make up Water Master, the various pumpers, and especially the water utility pumpers are the ones that are most concerned. And we got a brief update on the status of the peer review of the draft 2025 Safe Yield Reevaluation Report. That report is suggesting a reduction in safe yield of about 14%, and I'm sorry, 14,000 acre feet. And that's significant to the appropriative pool, the utility members. So we'll find out what it was just an update on progress made so far. There's not a conclusion of the peer review as yet. If the peer review says doesn't believe that the model used by the primary consultant is a valid model, then the board is going to have to decide what will we do in terms of identifying a safe yield. We have to update safe yield every 5 years. So ongoing. And that's it for Water Master.
Okay, thank you. CDA, I reported last time on that, and RCRA doesn't meet, till September? Okay, I remembered finally. WRCOG.
Yes, WRCOG, we did have a meeting for, it was a joint meeting for the Executive Committee and the Supporting Foundation, because, several years ago, we separated so that all of the fundraising efforts and all of the sponsorships and all the different things for General Assembly, for our speakers and all that, all those funds are separate. So we did have a discussion on our future keynote speaker for next General Assembly. And so after some debate and deliberation over that, we had a very extensive list, because when you were attending the last General Assembly, there was an email that was sent out for feedback on the program, what you thought, and then if you had speaker suggestions, the list was very long, very lengthy. Some of them were just not going to happen, like Magic Johnson at 500 grand was not going to happen. Any political person that isn't currently in office, because they're not allowed to accept a fee, they don't actually even sign a contract. We kind of got in a predicament a couple of years ago when we went after somebody, and it was down in the state of Texas. And they canceled 2 days before. And we had to scramble for a new keynote speaker, so we're not doing that ever again. So after much moving and shaking on that, and my attempt, Mr. Miller will appreciate this one, I attempted to get in Andre Agassi as our, Andre Agassi. So, and was hoping he'd kind of bring his wife, but, you know, so, but that he was a little over our budget, so we ixnayed that one off the list. So we are now going after, our top choice is Bob Costas. Our second choice, should Bob Costas' schedule not be available for us on the date that we need, our second choice followed up is going to be Jewel. And our third choice will be John Maxwell, who has written a ton of leadership books and is well known in the inspiration and leadership world. And then our fourth choice, should all of those not work, hey, you never know, because we have a date set already. We have contract in place with Pechanga that for 26 and 27. And our fourth choice is Tony Hawk. So we'll see. It is our 35th anniversary, and really what it came down to was it's going to be availability for the speakers. It was cost associated with that, and how much name recognition we could get, and what kind of fundraising efforts we could make happen for this. And really it was about looking at, it's our 35th year, and what haven't we really done? You know, we've had a lot of political leaders, we've had a lot of political stuff, so we kind of wanted to go outside our little comfort zone and see if we could get and shake it up a little bit and get something a little different. And so that was kind of the list that came about for that. It actually was a really quick discussion, and Bob Costas was the clear winner, so we're hoping that his schedule will open up. And with the Olympics right around the corner for Los Angeles, and him being a very recognized face of the Olympics and doing that, we thought that that would be a really interesting kind of fold in. So we'll see. So we'll see what happens. So I'll keep you posted on when we've got a contract signed, and then who we can start fundraising for and moving and shaking for. So that was all that. And then Clara Miramontes from the city of Paris was her last meeting as the TAC chair. So we will be welcoming our new TAC chair coming in, which will be Mr. Miller. So he's
Dan
gonna.
Wester's taking over WRCOG.
So
Move over cities.
you know. So traditionally, the TAC chair has followed who the chair is and what that is, and you know, Clara kept in because it was Rita and it really was her term, so she stayed, and so now it will be handled by our very own. So more to come on that.
I want to note that the Love Your Neighborhood program that WRCOG does received an award by CASQUA, the Stormwater Association.
Yes.
Received a big award, which is a big deal. That was a huge
Yes.
effort.
No, absolutely, and thank you for pointing that out. So that takes care of that. So that's all I have with WRCOG, and keep you posted on anything else that we've got going on.
Hang on, just jotting down a
Writing notes.
future question from, future follow-up. Sarah. Oh, that's also September. Okay.
September 2027.
Yeah, that could be. Okay.
I will send a note.
Okay, and Aqua representative?
Aqua, so we have a meeting scheduled for August 15th, so we'll be talking about the upcoming program that we've got coming on. We're having that Region 9, 8, 9, and 10 program, so that joint program is going to be happening November the 14th, so in Irvine. So I will find out if we've got contracts in place and locations all set and all that. And then the election is happening soon for the state officers and for all of the region boards, so that's coming up. I am very pleased to announce that our very own Carol Lee Gonzalez Brady, is up for the vice president of Aqua, and she, the person that originally threw their hat in the ring to challenge her, has withdrawn. And so she is unopposed. So we're super excited about that. Carol Lee came to me a long time ago and said she wanted to do this, and I was all in support for it. And so I'm glad that this path has been paved for her, and really looking forward to her leadership and what she's going to do at Aqua. So we have a good tie there. So super excited.
Okay,
Okay.
that is exciting. All right, we'll move to director comments. Director Gardner?
Just real quickly, a follow-up on the public comment. I won't read it, but the commenter said that this occurred at midnight, so Ricardo appeared on their doorstep at midnight. He identified what the problem was, and they were able to fix it with his advice, so they didn't have to call a plumber. And
Even better.
yeah. And they said that the experience with Ricardo made them a WMWD fan for life.
Oh, nice.
So it's really remarkable. And Ricardo is a very special employee, but all of our employees work so hard to represent us well, and you all do a super job. So thank you.
All right. Director Jensen?
Yes, so I attended the CASA conference, and it was actually very well attended. There were a lot of folks at this conference, and there were 2 sessions, and when I get my little survey sent to me and everything else, it will be to talk about, and I'm sure my colleagues who were there in attendance as well will agree with me, the federal legislative update and the state legislative update, who actually is chaired by our very own Michael Hadley. So they were packed sessions. There was no room for anybody. And so one of my little comments is going to be put us in a bigger room, because when you've got people standing on the wall and you can't hear, right, because the speaker system was kind of wonky. And the sessions are so packed with information and so much activity going on and so much that's being done on that side, and what is being supported, what's being, hey, we're all concerned about this stuff. They need to extend the sessions, and they need to be a little bit longer, because it's just too hard. And then people have questions and feel like they can't ask them because it's so packed and they're such in a time frame crunch, and that's kind of what the CASA conference is. They try to get you in there, dump a tremendous amount of information on you, and then get you the hell out, which I guess I appreciate at some point, but some of them are so important, and we want to know, as electeds up here representing and supporting staff's efforts, we really want to know, where can we be most effective? Where the phone calls need to be? What meetings do we need to be more active on and take a stance and really support those efforts? And so that was kind of my takeaway from that. There was always, they've really been creative at CASA, I have to tell you. They've really been creative with some of their speaker pools lately, and really branching out and drawing some information and some interesting folks to come in. They brought a guy in who was he was the CEO for Canada Ocean Racing, and he held over 15 world sailing speed and endurance records, and includes a Guinness World Record. His name is Nick Maloney. And I'll tell you, some of the video that he brought in and some of the stuff that he talked about and some of the stories that he told were just fascinating. And to have somebody that's got that kind of drive and those kinds of things going on in his life and talking about his inspiration, what really made him go to these things. And then it was really interesting too, because he said he got married and has started a family, and then his life focus really shifted a little bit, you know, and he got into a situation and some bad things happened out there, and he's out there alone in the sea with 30-foot waves coming over him. And now he's thinking about, gosh, what have I done to my family type of thing. So just kind of interesting. But, you know, I think it's more of a draw. I think now we're kind of looking at conferences like, okay, what other little thing can we come out of here with something and not be 100% focused on all the dirty details, especially in CASA, right? So but it was really fascinating, and it really just kind of brought, and it circulated a lot of conversation with a lot of people afterwards that really had, you know, some insight, some reflection on some things, which I don't think is a bad thing, because sometimes we all need to do a little breath of fresh air and kind of bring a new light in and new life to some stuff. And, you know, some of these conversations and some of these sessions can be very dry and, or maybe not so dry, but with CASA. But I thought it was really interesting. And then going back to my original comment at the beginning when we were talking about putting out our reports and everything, there were several sessions at CASA talking about media, how the digital forecasts and landscapes and things are really unfolding, the storytelling that's going on, the outreach, and how people are accepting their information, and if it's on social media, it's got to be true. You know, but to talk about those challenges and talk about making sure that we're the storytellers and we're putting out information. There were several sessions that talked specifically about that in conjunction with, you know, some of the other technical stuff. But I was really pleased, and I think this CASA conference really came out on top this year.
Yeah, it was good.
It really did. It really did. So, and that's my, oh, and I attended in support of our local first responders and our yeah, it was National Night Out last night, so I was happy to attend that. And the city of Marietta does a fabulous job. They had a tremendous amount of people, and I think it was record attendance to come out, even on a very hot evening. Yeah. People were really turned out for that. So kudos to Marietta, Marietta PD, Marietta Fire, on all the support teams that are associated with them for National Night Out.
Great. All right, thank you. Okay, Director Torres?
Just a couple. I was gonna also mention the developers. It was like the season or something, but a couple of them reached out, and I just want to thank staff for helping get through that. They all came out happy, and nothing changed. I mean, if they're listening, but they were happy that they got some answers to their questions. So thank you for making that happen. I also wanted to comment on the public comment, which I do whether it was positive or negative, but this one is awesome, and I want to thank Ricardo personally. This is my division, and so you know, it's not usually this great. So just thank you for taking care of our constituents and our ratepayers. But yeah, just the amount of service and care that he must have demonstrated to get a comment like this. Just thank you, Ricardo, for that. Right, it's Ricardo, not Richard.
It was all a mustache.
Yeah, he goes by both. Okay, and then I just, you know, we had the Casablanca Elementary School opened yesterday, but ahead of that we did a backpack drive and gave out 500 backpacks, 1,000 hot dogs, and countless haircuts to both boys and girls. Because they usually just have barbers, but we were able to get some hairstylists to cut hair too, and so that was really amazing to be a part of with Councilmember Sean Mill, Assemblymember Carrillo. So it was a really good event. And then I have been getting this article sent to me by Cal Matters about Aaron Brockovich's toxin, SB 466. I think this time I actually looked it up so I wouldn't say the wrong one. People are like, so water districts don't have to worry about Hex 6 anymore, and they're not going to be held liable, and people are just upset about it. And I wanted to see if there was a way we can actually talk about what the bill is and how it would impact Western and ratepayers and what it really means. I read it differently, and I've been trying to defend, but I didn't. I was like, what if we opposed it, and I don't even know, and I'm trying to defend Western in this bill.
We can bring that to ComGov.
I think that would
Happy
be-
to do that, yeah.
Well, I don't attend those, but anything you can give me would be helpful.
Definitely happy to bring it back to ComGov, but in essence, it's just giving legal protections for people who go above the Hexchrome 6 levels, a legal protection while they're meeting their
Standards.
mandatory steps towards remediating all that. So rather than, the second it comes to light that they have, above Hexchrome 6 levels, that they get sued by everyone, it gives them some protection while they're fixing the problem, just a little bit of balance there. So it's not that they're getting off the hook for it, they're just given a timeline to actually come up with a solution and implement the solution.
Okay, and
That's
and,
what
yeah,
it
and
does.
as
It's
as
technical, and I'm
some-
happy to talk about it a little more at ComGov. but
yeah, that
just
would be
in
cool.
high level.
I'd probably just listen in then, but yeah,
Yeah.
somebody who's like Aaron Brockovich inspired me to be where I am. I was like, we're not PG&E.
No.
They knew for a long time, according to the movie, they knew for a long time they were poisoning people. That's exactly what I understood is that,
So
yeah,
we
you
support
you're
that, yeah.
meet your standards, work actively to meet your standards. So thank you. I think
Very
that, but I got a few text messages and calls, and people don't like to accept just the plain answer. Like, it's not what you think it is. So I was curious about that. And then, but that's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Alrighty. So, along with President Laura and Director Denstead, I attended CASA conference as a board member for CASA. I have noted all the these little things that, I'm like, I think it's a part of growing the conference, growing of the conference. It used to, when we started 4 years ago, there used to be 230 people. This time there were 370 registered members attending. So we're growing, and as I said, yes, both the state legislative and federal meetings are so important, but they need to be there for a longer time because they are too short and people have questions. We had questions and we couldn't answer. So these are the notes. We do have a strategic meeting coming up September, so I have made notes for the board,
But the breakfasts were amazing, so I just want to say, okay?
This time they really,
This time.
they're improving every time, and we can see a big,
Breakfast was good. Breakfast good.
So, but my highlight was Director Roten and I got to go to a trip for Pure Water San Diego, which was really an eye opener. It was
Really interesting.
It was very interesting. We were not supposed to be. We were on waiting list, so we waited 45 minutes to get on the tour. Yeah, and we were able to go. And for me, I'm like, we've talked about a lot of what is that Pure Water project for San Diego is. They answered a lot of questions, which brought up a lot of more questions for us. So I'm looking forward to, as I've talked to Director Denstead, that LA is looking into a project like this. It is amazing, but the cost of that project. And San Diego talked about it, that most of their resources they had, locked in before COVID times. So the prices were much lower than if they were to do it now. So that was an eye-opener for us. It was really good. So just a little bit about what is what is water to purify recycled water? So what is that? So the water purification process includes 5 steps. It's ozonation, biological activated carbon filters, membrane filtration, reverse osmosis, and ultraviolet light with advanced oxidation. That was a lot of processes going through it, and we found out that this water is already recycled, purified 3 times before it comes to this process. And at the end of the tour, they had created a beer from this. That was the first time they had created beer from that water. And Director
I had to try it.
Roden did get to try
someone had to sample
the
it.
sample it, and she was able to do it. Was it good?
It was actually delicious.
So yes, so it was a very interesting.
For science, right?
Yes.
All for science. Yeah.
So.
Very expensive water.
Yes, so, yes.
Very expensive water.
Yes, so that is something that was very interesting for us. And as you also talked about the media presentation of how to handle social media of, like they talked about Oakland and Long Beach having cyber attacks and how to handle, as water agencies, to have a media person who's talking about it. So it was a very interesting conference, and I'm looking forward to being a part of making it better and participating. So that's about it. And I did participate at the Corona National Night Out last night. They always do a good job. I see all the kids being so excited in the community, and I love that event. So that's about it. Thank you.
Well, so the one benefit of going last is I can say ditto to the to the Aqua reports, although I do have a couple of points that I wanted to include. But before I do that, I think this is when as I wanted to make this announcement, I guess. As president of the board, I'm pleased to announce the formation of a new ad hoc committee in collaboration with Eastern Municipal Water District. This joint committee will be tasked with guiding both districts, Eastern and Western, through the upcoming process related to proposed changes in our general service area boundaries. The purpose of this committee is to ensure, do I need a drum roll? The purpose of this committee is to ensure that the boundary review and any subsequent modifications are handled with transparency, mutual cooperation, and a commitment to serving our communities effectively. Members of the ad hoc committee will include representatives from both boards, Directors Phil Pauley and Mike Corona from Eastern Municipal Water District, and Director Brenda Denstedt and myself from Western. This committee will work closely with staff and other stakeholders to evaluate the potential impacts and develop thoughtful recommendations. We recognize that service area boundaries are foundational to the delivery of our services, and this committee will play a critical role in supporting a process that is inclusive, data-driven, and aligned with long-term goals of both organizations. We look forward to a productive and collaborative effort as we navigate this important work together. And does someone want to touch just briefly on the area that we're talking about for the change?
I will.
Thank you. Don't.
So I've been talking with Joe Mawad, the general manager there. There are some really interesting lines drawn on the map for our boundaries when you get out towards San Diego County. Their rainbow, not our rainbow, went from the jurisdiction of San Diego County Water Authority along with Fallbrook into Eastern. When you look at the maps, it's kind of very odd how the maps are drawn with kind of circles around and islands and things.
Looks like a 5-year-old with a crown.
Yeah, and so the question came up a little while ago is, can we clean that up? And there's another very odd line that's drawn in Murrieta, where part of the area that Western serves, Western bills, Western collects the money, but it's within Eastern's service boundary. So the thought was, we should clean this up, change the lines so they make more sense. We talked about this with the board, and it's moving. And, setting expectations, this will be a LAFCO process. It'll take a little while, and that's why we wanted to kind of form an ad hoc so that we could keep the boards apprised of how it's going. I don't see that this ad hoc committee will meet very often, probably more to get it kicked off and then let the process take place. But it's a cleanup thing. I think it's good governance to go in and check this stuff.
Now, and just a comment to tag on to what Craig said. Director Polly and I have been talking about this for a very long time. And we've been talking about how we could clean this up. In fact, it's probably been conversations since the last MSR down there, and not having people be confused over, well, gee, this side of the street and that side of the street, but then it goes back to that side of the street for somebody else. And it's just too much. And it hopefully will clean up engineering efforts and staff being able to, easily transition stuff. And make it for the businesses to be able, that are, especially down in the innovation zone where we're talking about down there in the Jefferson Corridor area, to make it much easier for the business owners that are trying to build down there, who they need to come and talk to instead of taking a wild stab in the dark and making the rounds with 3 agencies to figure out who they're going to get service from. So this has been a long time coming, looking forward to it, and I think it should be a very, very smooth process. So, because we're just looking at what makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, excuse my not knowing your map, but is Rancho California not going to be involved? Do they not service down that far? Oh, okay.
No. Every problem is more complicated than it seems. They serve the area down there. We've been talking with Rainbow and Fallbrook both on several areas down there where it might be more efficient to have service provided by others than the arrangement that we have now. So that'll all end up being part of the conversation. But it wouldn't be a modification to their service area. So this is more, that's more about, who's providing water into the system and who's maintaining the system out there. So we have a contract with Rancho to do that, but it may make more sense for another agency to take that over and do it instead of Rancho. So you're right, more to come.
All right. So for CASA, which, the debate is still out. Is it CASA or CASA? I have to say, anecdotally, I'm hearing a lot more CASA, but it's like fingers on a chalkboard to me, so, yeah.
Right? It's CASA.
So, anyway, that hasn't been settled yet. One thing I wanted to add on the presentation from Nick Maloney, the sailor, and I did think, I love that these conferences are bringing in kind of an inspirational or thought-provoking speaker that isn't necessarily like, he wasn't speaking about wastewater, but he was speaking to a group of, leaders and science people and all of that. And so you can draw from his experience, his personal experience.
He was a doer for sure.
But at the very beginning, he asked who has sailed before. And I don't know, a third of the room, hands went up. After he was finished and he started taking questions, people would raise their hand, and before they asked their question, they said, so I thought I had sailed, but I really haven't. After you hear his story of what his sailing experience was, it was just,
And you see some of the stuff,
it just, yeah. And I thought it was cute too, because he did write a book, and he said, well, I'm not going to tell you too much of that story because it's in the book, so buy my book. He was cute about that.
He had a personality for sure.
Yeah, he was good. And then there were a number of different segments about AI, and the one on the second day, on Friday, was interesting because it was AI, but from the viewpoint of a journalist author. So he's like a investigative journalist kind of a thing. So I love to support local authors wherever I happen to be. So I actually bought 2 of his books, and he signed them, and I have one for a friend of mine who's very into the whole PFAS thing and all of that. Some of you probably know who she is. And so she's going to get a little surprise from me. But he was just interesting because it was just from a different viewpoint. I mean, what he had to say was interesting too, but from a different segment of who presents on those kinds of things. And forgive me, because now I can't think of the title, and I don't want to get it wrong, but I think it's Flushed. I'm pretty sure it's Flushed.
Yeah, the author Flushed.
Yeah,
The Remarkable
there it is.
Science of the Unlikely Treasure.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then referring back to the Pure Water tour, which I was fortunate enough to go on the Pure Water LA tour, and it was interesting, but I came away with a way different feeling from this one, and probably because LA's is just the demonstration part of theirs so far, and may remain that way depending, approvals and things like that. But this one, we were on the construction site, and it's scheduled to open, I believe they said, middle of next year. So that kind of tells you how far along they are. So we could actually really get a visual of the 5 different steps and what the facility looks like and those kinds of things. So also, 2 things really hit me. San Diego, according to what we were told, has no groundwater. That was shocking to me. So they can't take the water from Pure Water facility and put it back into the ground for that combined natural, part of the cleansing. So they send it to a reservoir. Now, when they told us that, Fossey and I are picturing a cement reservoir, a round tank. And we're like, what does that do? You're going to put this water in a tank? And we finally understood that, no, it's the Mira Mesa, I think is what it was. Yeah, Mira Mesa Reservoir, as in like a Diamond Valley, I don't know size-wise, but as in a Diamond Valley body of water. So that made more sense. But and then it gets treated, when it's mixed in there, then it gets treated again before it actually goes out to be used. So this company, and I had the picture up and it went away. This beer company is utilizing, I think they get 1 million gallons a day off the demonstration side of the plant. And they are a small batch brewery. And so they have partnered with Pure Water because if I'm understanding correctly, the water that's coming off of that has the most perfect pH something that they needed for this particular beer that they are calling Re-Beer. And yeah, and I believe the company was AleSmith is the brewery. So we actually got to, not only did we get to sample it, but this was the very first keg off of this beer. And so that was kind of cool, and we got little souvenir glasses that said Pure Water on them. And as much as sometimes that whole concept has an ick factor for me, I didn't seem to hesitate when it was time to sample the beer. I was like, yeah, I'll try this. So that was a really fun experience. And Director Rizzi made the point that they had all of their contracts in place before COVID hit. So when I think now about what it's going to cost in today's dollars for LA to look at a project like that, I can just only imagine. And so is the concept a good one? Yes. Is the time right, for us moving forward? I think theirs maybe had some things in place just at the exact right time for them to be able to go ahead. And of course, their water needs are different from our water needs and that kind of stuff. So it was very, very interesting, and I'm so glad we got to go. And yes, we did have to wait off to the side in the lobby, and they counted people on the bus and came back and said, all 7 of you can go. So we did. I think otherwise, most of the highlights were hit. I did really enjoy the conference. I would also like to add not only state and federal legislation, but biosolids. That meeting, the room was too small. They had no sound system. So the folks sitting around the big rectangular seating area were speaking kind of across to each other, but any of us that were in the chairs couldn't really hear. And that's, I know it might sound weird to some people, but that's an interesting topic to me, to just get a glimpse. I'm not a scientist, but to get a glimpse into what all of that means when they talk about the biosolids and things. So, yes, and it was really cool knowing that we have a representative on the CASA board. It really was. And, you know, Fozzie was like, oh, no, I'm going to take care of that. We're going to fix that for next time. So, yeah, so that was great. And, you know, once again, proud to represent Western at that conference. So I think that was all I had. Let me make sure I didn't miss ad hoc. Oh, I did want to thank you to the customer that wrote in this comment, because sometimes people have great experiences, but they don't necessarily have the time or take the time to stop and acknowledge it. And so to take that extra time and that kindness to say something about it, I think is just really appreciated by all of us. And yeah, so thank you. And that's it. Do we have any requests for future agenda items? No? Okay. Oh, the bill, yep, okay. Then we will go into closed session, and General Counsel, would you like to
Yes,
take us
the-
into that?
Yes, the board will be meeting in closed session for the public employee performance evaluation as listed on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. We're good? Okay. We're coming back out of closed session, and Mr. Neufeld will report out.
Thank you, Madam President. In closed session, the board discussed possible changes to the general manager's employment agreement. Do we have a motion to provide a 5% merit salary increase to the general manager's salary after his contractually required COLA, comma, incorporate applicable past amendments into that new employment agreement, and finally, provide him a 15% merit-based bonus based on his May 2024 salary, and have that bonus distributed as follows: $37,800 to his District 401A plan, and $21,900 to his District 457 account, subject to applicable IRS contribution limits.
So moved.
And I'll second.
And the race is on for
Everyone
second.
seconded.
Take your pick.
Okay. All right.
All right,
When
then we
you're-
can
When you're
have the
ready,
vote.
we'll vote.
Director Gardner,
Aye.
Director Torres,
Yes.
Director Dinstedt,
Aye.
Director Rizvi.
Aye.
President Roten.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, board members. I will be finalizing the updated employment agreement, and we'll send it to Craig and then the board president for signatures.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, item 10, we have information items, the investment report, and item 11, our next meeting, Wednesday, August 20th at 9:30 a.m. And with that, we are adjourned at 11:52.
53.